sounds a bit otherworldly. As you may know, that is the sound of a cassowary. So what on earth do cassowaries and space travel have in common? Perhaps Paul Webster from Kuranda, west of Cairns, can explain. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Rebecca.
What is this space mission that you're planning?
Well, it's all to do with an awareness campaign, and it started about a year ago for me when I'd taken down a small toy mascot cassowary to a very well-known quiz show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and I was on there and found that nobody of the contestants, nor the producers, directors, or even the host had even heard of a cassowary.
Really?
No, and they thought I was pulling their leg, and I told him, oh, mate, it's 1,000 times heavier than a magpie, and he can kick a goal from the halfway. He'd make a good mascot. He thought, no, I'm joking. And I had to convince them, and I mainly went there to promote Save the Cassowary campaign. And this was very, very important because we've only got 1,000 cassowaries left. But I came back and realised we needed to do more than that. We need a big awareness campaign because it's too big just for the wet tropics community to deal with. We need the whole of Australia's support, in fact the whole world, to help us save the cassowary.
How has the cassowary ended up in this situation, Paul?
Well, he's been in a Jetstar plane before, and as a flightless bird, he liked it. But we thought, how do I lift the profile higher? And we had a World Cassowary Day on the 26th of September, and that was fantastic. We had great outcomes, and we had a thing called Cassowary TV start from that. But I thought, how can we lift the profile even higher? So I started looking up to the skies and then started Googling and found that there are high-altitude balloon specialists here in Australia who can take payloads right up to the edge of space and about 33 kilometres up, and incredible imagery. And I thought, now that is a good way to lift the profile of the bird higher.
It certainly is higher. Why is this a cause that's so important to you, Paul?
Well, it's sort of, my family said to me, it started when I was only 3 years old, my love with cassowaries, and my father used to sit me on his knee when I was 3 and say a little poem. It said, once a jolly cassowary on the shores of Timbuktu ate a Christian missionary, hymn book, prayer book, Bible too. And apparently I loved it. And I thought afterwards, well, they weren't in Timbuktu, but then I found out they were in Timbuktu. In fact, Rebecca, they were the most impressive gift you could give to a sultan, king or queen anywhere in the world for the last 400 years was a cassowary. It was worth like half a dozen tigers. And in places all around the world, like Timbuktu, China, Japan has a fire brigade named after the cassowary. They call it the firebird. And I thought, well, the wet tropics is the only place this bird is found, and the bird's in really dire need, and it really needs the whole world's attention to get behind it. So there was my love with it. I also realised the benefits economically because I was a tour guide for many years in the Daintree, and it's an incredible icon, but a lot of people just will come just to see cassowaries. It's a very important bird.
Why are there so few left, Paul?
There's a range of issues, and a lot of them are manageable. Remembering this is a keystone species, so there are less cassowaries than there are giant pandas. And everyone knows the plight of the giant panda. Wonderful, cute animal that it is, but it actually sits on his bare bottom and eats bamboo. The cassowary spreads the seeds around the whole area. It's a keystone species. It's incredibly important to biodiversity, and it has a very, very important cultural significance. And the problems with it are roadkill, there's one. Dogs are another one, and of course the fragmentation of its habitat.
On ABC Local Radio Queensland, Paul Webster planning to send a cassowary into space. Just how are you going to achieve that, Paul? What are the mechanics of this?
Well, it's not actually that easy. We thought we could do it ourselves up here, but I've actually got a partner now. His name, you'd actually know Robert. Robert Brand talked to you, I think, back in October in 2013 about the possibility of a spaceport up here.
Yes.
And Robert's son is doing a project called Thunderstruck. If the listeners would like to see what sort of outcome we're going to get from this, go to Project Thunderstruck and you will see all the fantastic images and the team that is behind us, because Robert Brandt is definitely Australia's leading space entrepreneur. And I used him because he has a 100% success rate at getting the payload to the edge of space and coming back. And it's quite more technical than I've initially started to do a year ago, and I've realised I've handed it over to him as a partner. So that's who I'm engaging, Robert Brand, to do this launch for me.
And has Robert had any involvement with cassowaries before, or was he in the Eddie Maguire camp where he wasn't really aware?
No, Robert is a very well-educated man, and not only was he aware of the cassowaries but their plight, and Robert just loves cassowaries. He said to me, look, what can I do to help? And we found this along the way. I had Bill Cooper support me with the images, and he's Australia's, or if not the world's, greatest painter of birds, and everyone just wants to help cassowaries, and it costs a lot of money to do this normally, but he's just giving me massive discounts and just covering his cost to get this launch happening. So he knew all about the cassowary, and he's very keen to get behind and create a really successful awareness campaign.
If there are lots of people enthusiastic to help, Paul, what needs to be done for the cassowary that we're unable to do at this stage?
Well, if we can get some more funding, we can create a whole network of DNA sampling for the bird to protect the genome, because the bird's been fragmented, so we have isolated pockets in different regions, and some of them have a propensity for a disease called avian tuberculosis. Now, some of the birds we know here in Kuranda don't seem to get that disease, so there's one thing. If we can get better legislation for dog control, and even better still, a better pig management situation, because the pigs are a real problem. People go out with their dogs, but sometimes not all the dogs come home. And a cassowary is black, very much like a pig, and dogs are a very big issue as well. So there's two things that we can do.
Now, we should say we're not actually inflicting this on a cassowary and sending a bird to space.
No, I think that would be a little bit distressing. Yes, well, everyone be advised, we are not sending a real cassowary. And what it is, it's a latex helium balloon suspended in a pyramid, in a sense. It will have trackers and all sorts of antennas on it for the relocation when it comes back down to Earth. It will take about 2.5 hours for it to travel up to about 33 1/3 kilometres, which is a third of the way to space. But, I mean, that's when the end of the rockets are needed to launch yourself to space. So you're very much so in outer space at the very top of the stratosphere. And then this balloon will burst, because the original helium balloon is only about 2 metres diameter. And when it gets to the top of the stratosphere, there's no oxygen, there's no air. So it turns into a massive 12-metre balloon, and it explodes. And then it will drop back down to Earth. This will be the fastest cassowary in the world. It's going to break about 230, maybe 400 kilometres an hour coming back through the period where there's no air. And for a point, it will be the highest object on Earth. Anywhere. And then as it comes back down, the trackers will locate it, a parachute will open, and it will descend down, and where it lands can be anywhere to 160 kilometres from where you launch it.
That becomes the next challenge. Where will this launch happen, Paul?
Well, we were looking at long reach, but because we really need a successful launch and a successful pick-up back of the payload, which has all the cameras and images in it, we've decided on a place called Rankin Springs. Now, if you drive through Rankin Springs, don't blink, because you might miss it. It's only 120 people, but it's almost the high-altitude balloon capital of the world, with over 50 launches being done there. And Robert Brand has done, I think he's up to 21 now, and successful. So it's a little town that's sort of near Griffith, Broken Hill, out near there, or Longreach. But it looks like at the moment, the way the weather's going, we'll be doing it in February in Rankin Springs.
Now, you spoke about just how fast that false cassowary will be moving when it's falling back to Earth. How fast are your regular cassowaries on land?
At 55 kilometres an hour, their top speed. I was on the Daintree one time on a motorbike, and one came out alongside me. I was going reasonably quick, about 40 to 50k, and I saw the bird come out, so I flattened it, and it ran, I reckon, at 60k, and then it turned at 45 degrees, just straight into the thickest patch of wait a while I've ever seen. And that was one of the first times I really saw the magnificence of this bird. It can swim. They will swim rivers. I've seen pictures of them out at sea. I don't know whether they're going out to see the reef or not, but they will actually swim in the ocean.
Thank you so much, Paul. We'll stay in touch as the preparations to take a cassowary to space continue.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Paul Webster, cassowary conservation campaigner from Kuranda here on ABC Local Radio Queensland. Paul mentioned Project Thunderstruck. If you'd like to find out more about that, the website projectthunderstruck.org. And of course, stay tuned to the afternoon program. We'll be talking a little more about that as it progresses too.
Philippe Nachepasak lives in Tasmania.